What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For once, we're actually doing a video based on a game that just came out instead of one that came out like 10 years ago. Today, we're going to be taking a look at some of the guns in The Outer Worlds 2. And I did a quick YouTube search, and I was amazed that I'm the only person that's done this so far. I would have thought Jonathan Ferguson or somebody would have beaten me to this, but I'm happy that I get to be the first this time. I feel like a part of the reason why nobody else has done a video like this, and there's not even an IMFDB page for The Outer Worlds 2 either. And I feel like a big part of it is because the first game had so many weapons that they weren't really based on real life designs. They were just more generic sci-fi Art Deco looking weapons. The only one I can think of offhand that might be inspired by a real life gun was the Spacer's Choice Light Assault Rifle, which I thought looked like an AR-18 with added greeblies. The Outer Worlds, like I said, has always had an Art Deco aesthetic. The Outer Worlds 2 really leans into that. We really lean into like the World War I era firearms, and we can very easily see the design inspiration from those firearms in The Outer Worlds 2. Some of them are just ripped straight out of pictures of historical pictures, and that's really cool. There are others that are more extensively modified, but you can always see exactly where the design came from, and I love it. And it fits the story of the game, it fits the setting of the game, because I mean there's even instances where we see trench warfare in The Outer Worlds 2. So it was really cool playing through this game and picking up these weapons and exploring the roots to them. And being able to connect as a firearms nerd and as a history nerd, being able to see where each firearm comes from. So sit back and enjoy listening to me ramble, and beware of spoilers. I'm amazed I have to put a spoiler warning in one of my videos, but beware of spoilers for the early to mid game, especially for The Outer Worlds 2. Like we typically do in these videos, the first weapon we're going to be covering is the starting weapon of the game, the light pistol. Technically, you start the game with a subpar variation of this gun called the Earth Directorate Service Pistol, but it can quickly be replaced with the standard version after completing the tutorial mission. These weapons appear to be based on the Mauser C96 with a detachable magazine. I'm no expert, but it would appear the earliest production variants with detachable box magazines started appearing in the mid-30s with the M712, I'm not even going to try pronouncing that, being one of the more well-known. That gun also incidentally is select fire, and you can find some of these later on that at least fire in bursts. I can't say I found an automatic one yet though, but I'm also not done with the game. As a quick side note, let's talk about how ammo works in this game, as some of the more eagle-eyed viewers might have noticed some absurd magazine capacities in the B-roll footage. Like in the first Outer Worlds game, there are no specific calibers that you have to collect for your weapons. Rather, ammo is broken down into broad categories, like compact ammo that handguns fire, short ammo that lever actions fire, shotgun shells, and so on, with some weapons using even more exotic ammo types. I even found one gun that reloads by lifting a cap on top of the gun and pouring liquid into it. And the capacity is affected by certain perks and armor types, some of which I already had before I started recording. So I can't say anything about the capacities of some of these weapons. With that out of the way, the next sidearm we're going to be taking a look at is the machine pistol, which appears to be based on the Borchardt C93, which is a predecessor to the well-known Luger handgun. As the name implies, the video game gun fires in 3-round bursts, which I don't believe the real pistol is ever capable of, as it is probably the sole exception to the magazine capacity thing I just talked about, with this one having a long magazine that sticks out past the bottom of the pistol grip. If I'm not mistaken, the C93 only ever had an 8-round magazine, which sat flush with the bottom of the grip. One thing, however, that they did pay attention to detail with in this gun is, and I think is really neat, is if you slow down time with the tactical time dilation device, you can actually see the toggle lock mechanism on top of the gun in action. Moving on to bigger weapons, and one of the first heavy weapons that the player is bound to encounter is the shock cannon. Based on the name, it is an electrically based weapon, and it fires electrically charged projectiles. Thus, it is mostly a fictional weapon, but it does actually seem to draw inspiration from the Show, particularly the magazine, or the battery pack for lack of a better word, which is a semicircular device towards the end of the gun. The Shosho has a reputation of being one of the machine guns of all time, but the weapon in the game is actually a beast. This is a unique variant that I'm using in my B-roll footage, but I did use the base version to beat the boss to get it. And this gun will carry you from the early game into the mid game, and honestly until you start encountering some more electrically based weapons later on. It is very good against auto mechanicals, which your other weapons may not even scratch. Next up, we have the air-cooled machine gun, which it looks a lot like it takes inspiration from the Lewis gun. It really deviates though because it's designed to be fired from the hip, kind of like with a chainsaw type grip, like what we see a lot of machine guns use in science fiction. You know, I enjoy this design. It looks cool. It definitely, to me, works better than that thing from Fallout 4, which also seems to be based on the Lewis gun. It has the pan magazine on top and a thick front end like the Lewis gun's cooling shroud. Interestingly enough, aiming down the sights changes its rate of fire. Firing it from the hip has a more historically accurate rate of fire, that chug 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 chug, that slow, beefy sound. But when you aim down the sights, it speeds up dramatically, and it will actually overheat in that firing mode. It's a really cool inclusion of the game, and that rate of fire difference is a really neat mechanic. It's fun to play around with. The burst machine gun is almost certainly based on the Bren gun, notably with the top-loading magazine and the offset iron sights. As the name suggests, it fires in bursts, but it's still technically full auto since you can hold down the trigger and it'll keep firing, albeit in bursts rather than in a continuous stream. That's really all I have to say about this one. It's just a Bren gun with a really weirdly designed stock. Words cannot describe how overjoyed I was when I found the trench shotgun. It might be a little blocky in the receiver, but it is so unmistakably based on the Winchester 1897 trench shotgun, even including the cheese grater style heat shield over the top of the barrel. And the reload animations on this thing are so clean. From empty, we can see the commander load one round directly into the chamber from the ejection port, and then flip the gun over to keep pumping shells into the magazine tube. Oh, I love it! I took a flaw early on that increased my magazine capacity, but also lowers damage if I let my weapons run empty. But I can't help but let this bad boy run empty just to see that beautiful reload. The only thing that would make this gun better is if there was a sword that you can attach to the front of it for increased melee damage. Which there might honestly be somewhere in this game that I just haven't found yet, who knows. And lastly, we arrive at the singular rifle that I really feel comfortable in my knowledge of talking about, which is the Burst Assault Rifle, which, interesting name, but it gives me major STG-44 or Sturmgewehr vibes. It's very skeletal looking, more or less how I'd imagine F1 firearms would make a Sturmgewehr. Its inclusion in this game is very interesting lore-wise, actually. If we look at all the guns we talked about previously, most of them came about during World War I or very shortly before World War I, whereas this one looks like it was pulled straight out of World War II. And that's interesting because the group that we typically see using these are a group that uses math and reason to basically predict the future. So it's like they looked forward in time design-wise and pulled a gun from the future. And that whole conversation gives me a headache because The Outer Worlds is set in the future. But we see a lot of the firearms technology seemingly being based around World War I designs. It's a huge discussion that, frankly, I don't have the mental capacity to talk about, but thematically, it works. I don't know if the designers actually intended that, but that is something that I caught right away, is that this gun is a bit forward as far as the design inspiration for a lot of the firearms that we see in this game. And it's really, really neat in my opinion. Well, that's about all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching if you've reached the end of the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.